We're back.
You're back.
Yeah, I guess I'm back, yeah.
We were waiting on you.
I know. I missed you the whole time I was gone, Cody.
I mean, how many days was that? That was like 15-day hunt or?
Yeah, it
was 2 hunts, but.
Yeah, 2 hunts. I was thinking I was gone close to two and a half weeks, almost 3 weeks.
Somebody went against the grain.
Yep. Had to stack in all my vacation days at once.
Somebody needed to be there holding your bullets. Actually, that's not really true.
Mm-mm.
When a guy feels the urge and he's got 2 tags in his pocket, it's kind of hard not to hold off when you really want to fill the freezer.
Yep.
It's true.
It was a fun rip.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're back. Big Hunt Guys podcast. So we got the man, myth, the legend, as I like to call him, Cody Nelson. And we got over here, Ethan Klein.
Buyer in training. That's what we're calling him now.
Is that new?
I was going to ask,
what's your
official title?
I'm not.
Is that new for today, or is that?
I think it's buyer in training. It's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
It's what you're doing now.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Buyer in training it is.
Tell me about yourself there, Ethan. It's the first time you're on the Big Hunt Guys podcast, so welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. Shoot, I mean, I guess with optics, you have to be from Arizona, right? So I grew up in Arizona, moved out here for college, and once I finished college, it was like, all right, I don't want to do what I went to study for, and GOHUNT was hiring, and now I'm here. So
it's amazing how that happens.
Yeah. I came out here from Phoenix, not too far, but so I still go there and hunt pretty much here in Nevada and in other ways. And
you had a pretty good season.
Shoot, I got my butt kicked in Nevada archery deer.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
I got my mom on her first hunt ever, so she shot a cow this year.
That's so cool.
It was great. Yeah, I mean, her story is like she's been watching me and my dad and my brothers hunt for 20 years, and so she's like, a couple years ago, she's like, yeah, I think I want to hunt. And this year she drew a cow tag in a unit that was like, I think there's 15 total cow tags.
Oh wow!
And so there's like no elk, but we've hunted that unit a lot, and we know where there's a herd. And it was like day 3, and we hadn't seen an elk yet, and all of a sudden there was 4 cows on a ridge, and we're like, go time, let's go. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so she dropped one at 600 yards on her first ever hunt. Like that's pretty cool.
So sweet.
Yeah.
I wanted to briefly touch on what happened to you yesterday here at the GOHUNT office.
Oh gosh.
What happened?
Like 2 years in a row.
Yeah. What happened to you yesterday? You could have had a phenomenal season if yesterday would have worked out.
It was about 4:45, and I was getting ready to leave, and just got to drive home. There's traffic. Usually, I had to use the restroom and get up from my computer. And the Nevada first come first serve is pretty popular here. And so I had mine up because there's still some cow tags left here in Nevada in December, and I was like, yeah, I could fill the freezer. I'm almost out of elk from last year, and
which was good, by the way.
Yeah, and so I went up to use the restroom, gonna close up and head home for the day, and I came back and there was a Nevada Ram tag, first come first serve, available on my laptop from the time, about 2 minutes from the time I got up to when I came back, and of course that thing was gone immediately. So I tried to click it to add to the cart, and it was gone.
So the moral of the story is you should always not pack up until 5 o'clock.
I guess so. I guess that's on me for getting early.
Take your laptop to the bathroom.
Take your laptop to the bathroom when first come
or
first serve.
Or you just need to get like catheters or something and just sit at our desk all day.
Or diapers. Depends, whatever.
Whatever you need to do to get that first
whatever you got to do to get that tag.
Because those Ram tags definitely don't come around too often.
That would have been that's a once in a lifetime hunt as it is, and shoot, that would have been insane. So
dang it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Wasn't meant to be, I guess.
But his dad does have a good tag coming up in Arizona
next week.
I heard rumors of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll air that out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good week next week.
There you go. Get out and have some fun.
Yeah.
Still a lot of hunts to be had. So I wanted to have you guys on. I want to talk about rangefinders today.
Wow. Okay.
We've talked binos, we talked a lot of spotters, hinted at a lot of tripods, glassing tips, but we've never sat down and talked about rangefinders in depth.
Yet.
Just kind of run through some of the products we carry to maybe some of the different rangefinder options. I want to get into the Bino combo rangefinder and a single compact rangefinder, pros, cons kind of thing. And just kind of want to maybe start with Like, you probably get a lot of calls, Cody, about rangefinders, right?
It inundated.
Yeah.
Which is, fine, because I think it's, there's, you hear this stuff out there where people are like, oh, we, shouldn't use rangefinders. It's cheating. Look, here's the deal. When it comes to rangefinders, if you're responsible and you're doing everything you can do to control what you can control, there's people that think you shouldn't shoot long range, and what I don't care about any of that.
Yep.
What I care most about is that if you have the opportunity to know a distance to shoot and harvest an animal, you should know it.
Yeah.
To me personally, it should not be guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Because once the bullet leaves the muzzle or the rest, arrow leaves the rest, whatever, I think that should be as exacting as it can be.
Yeah, you don't want to leave that up to chance. And
There's
you owe it to that animal.
There's an animal at the end of it, and we as hunters have that responsibility to do what we do as quickly and clean as we can. I know that there's a giant debate out there about long range, or it's all merely interest in me, but that's something to me that it's inexcusable not to have a rangefinder.
Yeah. So you think right now, hunters who are going out there, they got their spotter, they got their binos, they got their tripod, absolutely need to have a rangefinder.
100%.
Yeah.
I just think it's, to me, it's, I mean, back in the days when I worked the counters, or, you just hear the gun stories of, oh, I shot him at, 300 yards, and then, you do that test with guys and you're like, hey, how far is that ridge like there? Oh, that's 500 yards, and he's like, and it's so off, it's not even funny.
Yep.
So I'm just saying that if it's a variable that we can control it.
Mm-hmm.
To the best you can. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. How, like, you've been around optics and the industry for a long time. How far along have you seen rangefinders go?
Oh, this is we are light years above where we were.
I remember those big giant ones and those big long skinny ones back in the day. Like,
yeah,
just could barely range anything.
The one that I always think back to is the Leica, where it was a normal binocular, but it looked like this big ball. I can't even remember the name of them, but it was actually, I think it was built by another company, and it was Leica. I'd have to ask the exacts, but it was, I think they were like 7x42s,
mm-hmm.
and they just were big and heavy, and they worked.
Yep.
But we have come. I think that the one that changed people's thought process is the moment that the GeoVid, what we know as the GeoVid R today, that GeoVid R, when it first came out, that's when I just remember the fever.
Yep.
Because it was like binoculars and a rangefinder, and they were they were still expensive, but they were affordable. I think they were $9.99 when they first came out, which
mm-hmm.
everybody was like, holy, and they might have been more than that at the time. It's been a while, but that's when I knew that we were just changing things. Because everybody wants a binocular.
Mm-hmm.
But then, buttons on the left, right.
Yep.
There's all these things that people want, and we've been asking for that laundry list of things. Like, most of us want the button on the right because, we're archers too.
Yep.
Well, I don't call myself an archer. I call myself a guy who shoots bow when I can get drawn. And I love hunting elk with a bow. But so, my thing is that we've been asking for these things: angle compensation, line of sight, and everything up until not too long ago was pretty much everything was line of sight.
Yep.
And then you started to get the angle compensation. And it's just kind of, very step by step evolved. And a lot of the people don't realize that there were so many things that were held up by patents and copy. You couldn't do this because you couldn't range out to this distance or under this distance, and it was all related to patent infringements.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, have you ever wondered why all the compacts are basically the same shape and size, and everything has to do with how that patent is, coming down the line, and people are respecting it.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's got a huge history, and people are interested, and now we've got the GeoVid Pros with the mapping, and you've got the Zeiss and the Swarovski. You've got Vortex and Sig Sauer. Everybody's got the AB Ballistics in there. There's so much information in there that it's taking that element of, I don't have to think. I have to put it all in there beforehand, make sure all that's right, and then when the animal is on target, or when you're on target and you're ranging that animal, it's a very simple. I'm going to click, range, shoot. I mean, basic adjusts.
Yep, you no longer have to take like a cosine indicator on your rifle and do all that math in the
100%.
field, little PDAs.
Yeah.
Yep. It's taking all that guesswork out.
It's been fun to watch the whole progression.
Yep.
And I still think that the most interesting one lately has been the Pro, because it's directly linked to a mapping service. And the fact that you could out of cover take a range of where you want to get to, and then range where the animal's at, and have the distance from there to there, but then to go underground, under a canopy, and come out at that spot, you used to do that blind. So, it's making people faster, more efficient, less guessing. Some people don't agree with that. I don't know where everybody falls on that part of the line, but I'm just most excited that people are getting the best equipment possible to be ethical with the ranging. And I know that there's a lot of stuff out there about fair chase and all this stuff, but my biggest concern is just always taking as much precaution as possible to eliminate the variables.
Yeah, because even like you said, the long range side, if you have a rangefinder in hand and you know what your personal limitation is of yardage, you can now range something really easily and be like, well, that's 400 yards and I'm really only comfortable at 250 or 300.
Right.
I need to get a little closer. Where before, if you didn't have some of those tools, you might be taking that shot and just guessing like, oh, I think that's 275 when it's 425, Because it seems like you said earlier, when you go to different states and you're looking at different terrain, some terrain looks a lot bigger than it is, some terrain looks a lot smaller, and the guessing game of what's that yardage, and like sometimes just being
totally off.
You're always off.
Yeah.
And so like certain states and certain terrain features just make you misjudge yardage a little differently. I'm not sure what it is with your eyes, the elements, the lighting, and all that stuff.
Well, shadows, trees,
Sage
big
brush
mountains,
country,
background. I mean, it all makes it change on you.
Yeah. I want to touch on quickly you guys' preferences of range finding binoculars versus compact. What is like your preference? And have you tried to use both of them? Or
I like compact, just because I do both archery and rifle.
Yep.
So I'd rather have something I'm stalking in on an animal with my bow. I don't want to bring my binos up to get a range. I want something small. I'm right here. Even stalking the last couple of hunts I've been on, I'm glassing more within 200 yards with my rangefinder than I am with my actual binos.
That's exactly. I'm
so
the
like
same way.
a 6-power or even a 5-power compact, you can get like 7's still good, but doing something compact for me that can do I can still go get a 1,200 yard range for a rifle shot. I'm not taking that shot, but like you can't get a basis where you're at, but then something just super quick, simple. It's right here.
Do you think it too comes into play like that compact rangefinder is less movement in animals? See, once you're in close too.
It's a smaller unit too.
Yeah, so you can kind of hide it next to your body.
Yeah, I think
shrink
you can
down
move
behind
it
a little bit. Yeah,
that's exactly what I think is that you've just got real easy, quick movements, and you can be, I think, just a little more methodical rather than taking both hands, or you may be messing with
hide behind your bow a little bit.
Well, yeah, you can. That's exactly right. I mean, I've carried both at the same time, and kind of find myself using the compact on the bow situations. Rifle, I use the binoculars most of the time anyway, so never really had a problem that way. I like using the binoculars.
Yeah, there's a use for both. Like on my mom's hunt this year, I had my binos mounted, and it would have been so easy just to hit a range instead of because I'm calling yardages for her so she can get, my dad can get the MOA dialed right. So I'm like, all right, 615, go back to the binos, go back to the, so there's use for both, but
right,
for sure.
You just, you got to figure out what works for you. And quite often there's been times, and again, I say this all the time, but people think I'm crazy before when I've just left the truck without any chest binoculars and I have a rangefinder, a compact. And they're like, well, where's your chest binoculars? Well, I don't need them. I'm going to use, because I got 15s and a spotter or some combination in my backpack. So I don't need to have, that all the time. If I'm looking 200-300 yards, 100 yards, I'm either going to pull everything out and put the tripod on it, or, I'm going to keep walking and keep moving and keep checking it. I don't mind looking through a binocular once in a while.
What do you think the biggest pros are for a combined binocular rangefinder system that people are looking at? They just like having one system, simpler, one less battery, or it's all in one unit type of thing? What's the draw to that? Getting it.
Well, again, I think it comes down to, I just feel like there's a ton of guys who just, trying to pare down all the equipment. I think it comes to more weight and size, and people are trying to pare things down more than
one less thing to fail.
Yeah. I don't know. I've said this before, and I hope that we don't ever just, evolve into everything's got a rangefinder in it.
Yeah.
The reason I say that is because glass up until recently has always been a little bit compromised.
Yep.
In terms of light transmission, and it has to do with the electronics and reading the digital parts, and so there's a lot involved with that make it a little more difficult. So I think there's pros and cons to everything, but we're starting to get pretty good. And I think about that, and I say that I think we're young. Up until just recently, the last 3 years, man, we've put out some really cool stuff that checked a lot of boxes for a lot of different people.
Yep.
And I don't know that before long, I think most of these rangefinder companies are all going to be, I don't want to say tapped out, but they're all going to have that capability, and things are going to get smaller and more accurate, and there's differences in the way certain rangefinders read terrain and bounce off of things, and in beam widths and height, and how there's so much that goes into it. That
it really blows me away when you break down the complicated nature of what's actually in a rangefinder. When I just think about it in my head, like back in we talked about just beam divergence. You just mentioned briefly a little bit. It's like beam divergence back in the day was it was good, but it was pretty wide.
Right.
And now we got super tight beam divergence, very accurate readings.
Correct.
I can read a tiny rock. I don't know, before it was always like you have to try to read a reflective surface to get a range. Deer, sometimes it was a little bit iffy if it was actually ranging it, or if it was ranging behind the deer because you didn't know what that beam divergence is. But now that beam divergence is getting so tight, they'll be able to do a lot more accurate readings, which that only helps you benefit a lot more, like when you're out in the field.
Yep.
And I'll touch on one more thing too. I get a lot of questions on my personal preference, because you guys both mentioned yours on the compact versus the rangefinders and binos. So guys always ask me why I'd never use rangefinders and binos, and you touched on it a little bit, but it's like, to me, I want one tool that's built for one purpose. And that's why I feel like a compact rangefinder, that's literally its whole purpose. I prefer that rather than it being combined in something else. Like I said, there's probably a give and take in there when you have a rangefinder in a bino.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're kind of getting at, right? Is that we haven't perfected it that much.
Yep. it's still really good.
It's still amazing,
Yeah.
but we still got, there's some things to make better.
Yeah, and that's why I just like some. Yeah, it's great to have tools that solve two different purposes on a mountain, like just different things. Like I have a knife that has a capability of having an Allen bit on the back, so it doubles as two different things. But when it comes to the things that help me really kill an animal when I'm out there, because that's literally what I'm trying to do, kill the biggest animal I can, I feel like I am better off having a dedicated bino and a dedicated rangefinder rather than combining them together. Let's, just again, two different things. If I fall, land on my binos, hit my binos hard, drop them, and all of a sudden I can't range anymore, but I could glass through them, well, now I'm kind of hosed in that situation because the rangefinder function somehow got knocked off and it's not going to work anymore. Well, I still have, if I still had a compact rangefinder and a separate or binoculars, things might be better.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm such an optic snob in terms of, I want the best of the best, and I don't want anything messing with light transmission and whatnot. That my own feeling is I don't ever want to get away from binoculars that are truly binoculars. So it's kind of like that. How do I say this without offending? But there's just things that are built to be versatile, but yet they maybe don't do it as good as the thing that's just meant to do only one part of it. Let's go outside of our typical realm. So how there's shotguns out there that are built to do 2 3/4, 3 and 3.5 inch. But yet you can't really shoot the light loads, right? You got to shoot a heavier load.
Exactly.
Well, I would rather have a shotgun that either just does 2 3/4 and 3 inch, and get a specialty gun for 3.5. That's just the way that I think about it. But I just think that we're not completely there yet. That we've eliminated all the the bells and we've taken all the bells and whistles, put them together, and everything is as perfect as we want it. We're not there yet. So I still like having a dedicated piece of glass that if I'm hunting coos deer and I'm hunting, for my tag and I'm not testing, and I've got my piece of glass that's going to help me find deer as good as I can find them.
100%.
And I will go to another piece of gear to do the the rangefinder.
I also like too when I'm getting ready to take an animal. Sometimes I take my binos either out of my bino harness or take my bino harness off. I set them down next to me, and then I set my rangefinder down next to me as well. I take it off the tether. That way they're both there. So normally I can track in my scope when I hit an animal, but sometimes when I hit it and the animal might run a little bit, I want to pull up my binos right away to see something. And this could be the argument for having them both together, because while I'm picking that up, I can't range now. If it maybe moved 50 yards, I need to get another range, but I like to be able to pick it up because I have a bigger field of view, see what the animal's doing. Okay, it's right there. Move the gun on it. A rangefinder's right there again. Just click range, do a quick dial, and then if I need to take another shot, I can take another shot. So that's my strategy. So you can argue the other way, like, well, if I had them both combined, you're limiting that one step. That's quicker to get on an animal again, or maybe the animal, moved and you had to move your gun and trying to find it again, and then you could get your range if you haven't even taken a shot yet. But so there is definitely some pros, cons to both these setups, but I feel it's really nice too to be able to have a compact rangefinder, hand it over to my buddy. He can just range something for me rather than my binos. Maybe they're tethered in a way where you can't take it off that tether. It's not a quick release thing, and you want your buddy to be able to range for you.
Yeah,
and you want to keep your binos with you.
Probably the most common question it's probably the most common, and a lot of it comes from guys that are guide outfitters or people helping other people. The biggest call right now is like they want 12 power or 15 power with range finding capabilities. And there's really, if you think, there's only 1556 GOVIT-Rs. And the new one is, I looked at it a couple months ago. I haven't gotten in it yet, but it's a pretty fantastic piece of gear. But there's been a pretty big calling for that. So I know we're moving that direction into the binoculars and bigger power and magnification. It'll be interesting to see if they can do it and keep everything the way they want it. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where we go with these. And then GeoVid Leica comes out with the GeoVid Pro, which flips everybody on their end because they went to the 32 millimeter. But they added the mapping feature, and we keep kind of the ebb and flow and how this is coming together. It's pretty awesome. I'm just excited that we've got these capabilities coming, and I think we're going to have more choices than we've ever had before.
There's that key word. Every time we're on a podcast talking about optics, we talk about choices.
Yep.
We have choices these days, and it's great to be a hunter because of the choices we have.
Yeah, it's for a guy that gets to be on the phone every day and sell, and you got Vortex, 6 Hour.
Yeah, what are the brands we carry in Rangefinder?
Vortex, 6 Hour, Revic, Leica, Zeiss, Leupold. They're all there. They've all got things coming, and they're all trying to always better themselves, and it will continually grow.
Competition's good in the Rangefinder
world. And there's others out there. We've been testing some stuff that is not in our normal realm, and that I would hope that these make our list someday.
Yeah, I've been seeing Ethan test a rangefinder lately.
It's been fun, and there's some good products out there. But you got to figure out, do they mix with your core customer, and how they're going to be received, and will they sell well? And you got to take all those things into consideration, and we're making a concerted effort to answer those questions.
What are some of the biggest questions you guys get when someone calls up or emails or whatever and says, "Hey, I'm looking at buying a rangefinder"? Like, how would you go about just diving into what that person needs?
My biggest question always to ask is, are you archery or rifle?
Mm-hmm.
And then, the next one would be, are you using ballistics, or are you just doing range, line of sight, or angle compensation? Because people have to define how they're going to get information and receive it, and then ultimately turn the dial on their turret, or are they even doing that at all?
Yep.
So, or is this, the BDX system with 6 Hour, is it doing that for you?
Mm-hmm.
Or the DS for Swarovski, or there's, if you think about it, if you're not into long range shooting, and you just told somebody, "Oh, go figure this out," there are some people that call that they don't have, and I'm not even making fun of. They just don't. There's so many systems that you could look at of to getting to the same point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think what we get the opportunity to do is to slow it down and go, okay, let's answer some basic questions on how you intend on doing this. Or what are you doing now that can complement what? So I'm just always literally just trying to figure out what is working for this person now, and what are they trying to change? Or maybe they're not trying to change anything at all.
Yep.
They just want to enhance, like, oh, I just want to make sure that I'm ranging from this, and that, this is telling me correctly what my corrected distance is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think sometimes too, like, you have to go on what's their prior experience, because some of these rangefinder systems, like, if you turn one on and look through it and don't really read the manual word for word, they're pretty confusing.
I can honestly tell you, period, that if you buy a rangefinder and don't read the manual, you are severely.
Yep.
I've had to read the manual every time.
You are literally hurting yourself.
Yeah, there's so many different menu systems, so many different profiles for even just the standard ones have their like A, B, C profiles that go with different cartridges and blah, blah, blah. And then you have even, was it Leupold system?
Full draw?
Yeah, the full draw has that little archery stuff in there.
You get an archer's advantage and plug in your arrow build and trajectory, and if you're going to hit that branch, or it's
all that stuff is really
cool.
Like how to do light modes even. Like, you don't want to have it super bright all the time because you're going to blow your eyes out when you look through it. Like, even like doing all that.
You get into, guys that are colorblind, guys that can't see out of one eye, and the binocular forces you to look through one tube.
Red versus black reticle.
I mean, you just have to really slow it down and really ask a lot of questions to make sure guys are getting the best information they can, because the rangefinders are not all the same. I mean, you're hoping that when you take two rangefinders and hit the same distance, it's like, close, but there can be little distance, changes. I would say the biggest question I get right now is like about the AB and the ballistics and how do I do this, and does it mate with my Kestrel or not? Okay, but are you going to use the Kestrel? But I mean, how are you going to? So again, some of these systems take it all in, and that's the only thing to this, unless I'm missing something out there. Kestrel with the wind meter, I would assume at some point we're going to have wind meters.
I've been waiting for the time when
you just hit a little flip up and the fan goes, and it's going to tell you right then and there.
Yeah, that would be probably a rangefinder that would really intrigue me if it has applied ballistics on it. It's compact, still has that 7x magnification, tight beam divergence, and has the capability to grab my wind right on it. Like I said, a little flip-up thing would be ideal, because that again eliminates one of those tools, because I do have the Kestrel all the time, the 5700 Elite, and it has all my ballistics in there, so it's basically a backup solution to me. If someone else wants to range for me, I still have that. I can still make a good corrected call.
Well, see, I think you just touched on something, because, I've looked through the STR and Swarovski for quite a bit, and if you're calling for somebody and they're shooting, MOAs or mills, and you've got the proper reticle, and somebody misses by X, and you're gridded on there, and you can literally tell them, oh, no, that's just come two MOA left. I'm sorry. I've been to FTW, and, thank God for Swarovski, because that was one of the funnest shooting schools I've ever been to. But you do that, and at yardages that you didn't think possible, and somebody goes, hey, just come two left. Like, oh. And you do it, and it's right on.
Yep. And that's where it comes into play, too.
So are we heading down, I think there's a day when the spotting scopes play a way bigger role.
Yep.
Now, I don't want everybody to freak out, because I don't know anything, but it's conversation.
Yep, I know where you're going here.
There have been conversations asked, like, hey, what do you think about this? Or I've always thought that when the STR was doing that, Loophole has been big on reticles, and they've all got the possibility. But when you do that, man, if I as a spotter could just communicate with my shooter, hey, this is the distance.
Even just having a reticle, also, a way to maybe turn off and turn on a reticle on a spotter would be great, because it would be nice to have a reticle on a spotter for those times when you're calling. Even if you're at the range just practicing, or guys who are competition shooters or whatnot, if you could have a reticle on your spotter to better call it out when someone's shooting, just help them make that shot a lot easier.
There's no doubt in my mind that if you are sitting behind somebody and you're watching, and they make a mistake and you call it out and they come correct, there's no doubt in my mind that is one of the most efficient ways to help somebody back on target.
I think, too, it comes down to, that's one of those points, too, with the shooter and the spotter do also have to be in great communication with each other and know when I say come two left or whatever, that means 2 MOA. It doesn't mean 2 inches or 2 feet or a foot or whatever. And then when that person shoots, also knowing not to get too excited and be like, oh, yeah, you missed him high. Well, tell me right now how much I missed. I don't need to know. I do need to know I missed him high, but give me that correction right away as well. And that's where shooter, spotter have to be also on the same page. No matter if you're hunting or just out there practicing, that's where if you're going out practicing with your friend, you should maybe practice some of these situations where you get into that and you know how to call and even read wind for someone and give them the correct dope and read it to them correctly. Maybe that guy does have a mill scope and you're used to MOA, and you used to know how to, convert over to that so they can just make that shot.
I know that there's some incredibly smart people, and when you get into the world of ballistics, and man, you can choke a guy with all that knowledge, and some guys are trying to keep it real simple, and other guys you can't give them enough information, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, what's that? It's choice.
Yep.
Some guys like to do a yardage turret. Some guys like to do mills or MOAs or, whatever they're doing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with any of it. As long as you know that beforehand, when you've practiced and all that stuff that you're doing, as long as that translate, to when it's game time, and it all works.
Mm-hmm.
There's more than one way to do this, and I don't. I mean, there are some guys that make it, in my mind, they make it ultra complicated, and there's some guys that, man, I just like their style because they make it work and it's quick.
Yep. Something I've noticed too on rangefinders I'll touch on, because me and my dad are both guys who love shooting long distance practicing, and we know sometimes too in some of these older model rangefinders now they've kind of, I think the 8K helped fix that a little bit because you can kind of move some things around in there, but where your rangefinder is actually ranging is an important thing to test out.
Oh, yeah.
Because you go out there and you think like, oh yeah, it's center of the crosshairs, and that's where it starts to pull in the range from. But what you really can do is go out and find like a big light pole, stand 20, 50 yards away, aim up at it, click and hold the button, pull it into that light pole until it reads. Take note of that, come above the target, pull it down, take note of where it's reading from, and then try to find somewhere you can go below it as well. Then you actually can figure out exactly on that reticle on your rangefinder where your rangefinder is taking that exact yardage. Because if you're ranging at something that's 500 yards away and that beam is actually off a little bit from those crosshairs, like they probably do the best job they can to align that, but it's slightly off, you could be ranging, above that deer or below that deer and not getting the correct range.
Well, and again, I think that comes with time and experience, and if you're, antelope hunt, tall grass.
Oh, some antelope hunts are something that's really hard to get a range.
You got a hill in between you.
Oh yeah, heat waves.
Heat waves, and there was a situation, and I'd have to really go back and look at the actual yardages and figure it out. But you got your buddies saying that it's 251, and the rangefinders are saying this, and finally I just took the middle and just. It was a do or die moment, and it's one of those things. Well, you're like, well, okay, I know with this caliber in that given range, I'm only difference of like 2 inches, and I'm going to be in the kill zone. So for shorter distances, that works. But man, it was frustrating because I was getting one thing and he's getting another, and things are not matching up. So at the end of the day. Yeah, I kind of had to figure out, well, okay, if that's the farthest thing hitting right there, that's the, and it was. And when we walked over there, the amount of grass, and there was, between us, there was like shrubs that you couldn't see. And so it's like, well, no wonder why. I mean, I think things were getting, blocked and not blocked, and it ended up really good, and it ended up, that antelope died where he stood.
Yep.
And if it had been longer distances, that could have been a nightmare.
Yeah, and that's where we always talk about, like you hear me say it a lot, it's like you have these tools, they do their job correctly, but you have to do your due diligence ahead of time to practice with them, know how to use them. Like Ethan saying, like he reads the manual all the time.
Oh yeah.
Like I think I know the SIG, rangefinder system to a T, but I've even have that rangefinder manual sits on my reloading bench. Mm-hmm. Every now and then I open it up, just page through it, just to think of things again. Like you just have to practice out there to know exactly what that tool is doing and how to manipulate it in the field.
Well,
like even if you have a fancy rangefinder that does wind calculations, how do you manipulate the menu system to quickly go in there, plug in 10 miles an hour from 3 o'clock, switch over, and then to make sure in your mind after you leave this scenario right now to reset that thing back. Otherwise, you're going to miss the opposite direction when tomorrow that wind's going to be totally different. So being able to play around with that, to be confident in the field, because things happen fast when you're hunting. It's not always super slow.
My favorite thing with any rangefinder. My favorite thing with any, like Garmin Fortrex or what? God, I can't even think.
GPS. Oh.
GPS. Yeah. I'm sorry. I was going down the Garmin route. GPS. There is nothing more favorite to me that I like more. Period. Than when you open up the box and they have like a little field cheat sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Those have saved my butt so many times.
Yep.
Like, hey, here's a troubleshoot.
Yep.
Here's a,
I love that.
and I, there's certain rangefinders have those, and I think it's awesome.
Some of them even have the little sleeves in the little rangefinder holder that you get when you buy them that you could like stick that little card in.
Oh no, that I think that's the greatest thing. If I were a rangefinder company, I would put that in all of them.
Yep.
Hey, here's a little cheat sheet.
Put it in
Get
your
in the
bino
field.
harness.
Just don't lose it.
Yep.
It's real. It works.
Mm-hmm.
I have probably, I would say in the last 10 years, I have probably on no less than 10 occasions had people on legitimate hunts call and say, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, in many cases, if I have it or I just refer to the manual and I walk them through it best I can. And, sometimes I get things that are over my, like, I think I have a pretty good understanding of, most of it.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way.
Yep.
So, and the biggest thing is, are what they're saying, is it what they're actually asking? Because then you find out you're talking about different languages, and you're like, well, then now you're really screwed. So it's really important, I think, to read the manual, pay attention, do the best you can, and ultimately, if you have questions, ask them before. Don't just take it out of the wrap and go.
Yeah, but even some of these more complicated things too, it'd be nice to either jump online, grab their manual, and screenshot some of those things. They're very important.
Absolutely.
Like, I've really wished that more companies that sync over to your phone with ballistics apps and things like that would just make their app maybe a little bit bigger and have a little more offline tutorial capabilities. Like, I know some of them are getting a little bit better, but I've ran into it before where I get out in the field. I've traveled, maybe 1,000 miles for a hunt, and I get out there and I'm like, well, I need to sync my compass now on my rangefinder. I'm trying to remember, how do I do that? I know I got to rotate it. I got to rotate all the axes. Like, I've done it enough in practice, but still in my mind, I'm like, man, it'd be nice to jump in there, have a little tutorial. There's some of them are getting better. Like, have a little bit of tips on there, but a lot of them just take you to a website link. Well, when I'm offline, it does me no good. So maybe just have a little offline section where you can have little lightweight little graphics or explanations. Like, when you're on the field, do this to sync the compass and do this to manipulate this sort of thing. And just have a little bit, tips in there to make things easier, especially on your phone when you're offline.
I tell guys to always have extra batteries.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
If something,
keep them to your chest too, so it doesn't get cold. And
yeah, I mean that's the thing that's always a great thing to do is, but the battery thing. If something doesn't feel right with your rangefinder, take the battery out and replace it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how many people come back and go, oh, man, I didn't even think about that. Well, I just put it in the other day. Well, battery, it's a battery.
Yeah, and I've mentioned before, too.
Batteries fail sometimes.
Sometimes even when I look at my rangefinder battery, and it shows like half battery, three-quarter battery.
Right, and then it dies.
It dies next. It's like, well, it showed 3/4. Like, well, maybe they just haven't figured out a way to make that really accurate, or it's just really complicated because different batteries, you have lithiums, you have normal ones, but it's like, you never can really trust that. That's why now I think I carry 2 or 3 rangefinder batteries on me at all times. And the biggest thing too is keep those rangefinder batteries on your person. If you have them in your backpack and you're going on a stalk and you drop your backpack, now you're out there hunting. Now you're not going to have those rangefinder batteries.
It's funny we're having this conversation because I can't remember exactly what podcast it was, but it was military in its beginnings, and they were talking about the batteries that when they were on deployment. and they would come back from every mission and toss batteries, and then they're realizing, like, by the time they get halfway through the deployment, they ain't got no batteries. And everybody's like, what's going on with, where's all the batteries?
Yep.
And the guy was talking about it. He goes, hey, you know what? I just got to that point where I was more relaxed, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this until they fail, and when they fail, I'm going to have the extra battery with me. So, instead of coming back from every trip, but I would just tell guys, make sure that battery's with you. Mm-hmm. And if it fails, take it out right then and replace it and do it that way.
Yeah, because you think when you're out there, you're only use your rangefinder when you are about to kill an animal. But we say, like I think you stated earlier, mm-hmm. I use my rangefinder all the time. I'm sitting there glassing. I want to get to that glassing knob over there. I'm going to click a range and figure out how far that distance is over there.
Oh, yeah.
Or even I'm making a stock, like range something.
I always think
how far you gotta get.
I always test myself more than probably I should, just constantly clicking it. Hey, how far is that? Hey, how far is that?
Or you're sitting in a tree stand. Okay, 30, 20, 40, 50 maybe, 15. Like, each tree's got a different, and then you're sitting there like, oh, shoot, I forgot. What was that again? Like,
you're kind of playing a game, like trying to memorize it, and then trying to see if you recognize what that yardage is, and if not, quickly range it, because you never know what the animal's coming in.
Use it all day.
Yeah, I think that, having your cheat sheet with you, or your, just your whatever that card is called, mm-hmm. A check sheet and a how-to, quick reference. I think those are priceless, and making sure that you're going through those things at home, mm-hmm. On the range, making sure that, you're, I think when you're on in the, you've got other targets, maybe you're not going to shoot it, but range that deer and find out, I don't care if it's a doe, find out what it takes to get a good solid range on that. Mm-hmm. I would also tell people 100%, if you can mount, that rangefinder somehow, and especially for the guys that are shooting in excess of, 5 and 6 or whatever yards, the more stable you make that, I don't care if you have to use a fence post, I don't care if you use the bed of your truck, I don't care how you do it. Do something to make it quiet so it's not moving around. The less it moves, the more accurate, and the more, if you do it 10 times, you're going to get 10 times more accurate, or 10 times you're going to get a more accurate reading.
I kind of wish more rangefinders would make a 1/4-20 stud hole on the bottom of it so you can mount it.
Yeah, I mean, right now you've got you got Rangers. Yeah. You've got, they added to the old Rangers.
Yeah.
But so it has it in the Viper HD.
And Razor.
And then they did not do it in the Diamondback, right?
We can.
And then, so who else just added it?
I think Revic, their new one.
Revic does it.
Yeah.
Segi's still have to have the little cradle.
Sig's got the cradle.
Leica's got the CRF.
Leica's got the CRF, which I'm amazed. That sells okay for us, but it's like I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, there's a video for you. Like, we should be pointing out like, hey, if you're shooting long range, if you put this in a saddle or however you're doing it, you're gonna get better results.
I use that cradle all the time when I'm out just target shooting.
I mean, even if you don't have a cradle and you've got like a shooting saddle, like the Triclops ones.
Absolutely.
You can clamp that in there.
Just spin it under your,
Yep.
Gosh, I knew we had you on here for a reason. That's a good tip.
Well, you know what else is a good tip? That there's people that use the shooting saddle. They clip their binos into it.
Oh yeah, you totally could do that too. Clip a bell.
You can do that.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat on this deal. Mm-hmm. You can always find different ways to use things.
This is why I always like having the optics experts on the Big Hunt Guys podcast. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, it's I'm just excited to see what's coming.
What do you think the future holds?
Well, I do. For me personally, I mentioned the spotting scope deal because I think it's to me there's just this obvious.
Yeah, you're talking maybe a rangefinder in a
and I think it's because of just how popular, 100% how popular long range shooting is. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I don't know. From all I know is maybe there's stuff that even exists better than what we know. You know, that is in the. But I don't think so. But why not?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to see eventually. I think you're going to see more magnification. I just think that there's going to be some ways to do that. I think you're going to have where all of this is way more intuitive. You're going to, like, I will say, Leica did a fantastic job changing from the old series to the new pros. Way more intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
With everything that you have to punch to get in the system to get on and to where you're ready, it's completely different.
Yep.
They did a really good job of condensing that and making it user friendly.
Do you think more companies might lean a little bit more on the heavy side on apps to help set up these rangefinders?
Oh, like 100%.
I think because like the menu system, like I was saying earlier, is kind of sometimes complicated because you don't really have 2 buttons on a rangefinder for a lot of times, and so you need maybe more functionality. But if you can set it up and maybe send different features that you really like from the app to the rangefinder, and that way the rangefinder is more customized for your style, might make it easier.
User friendly too, and you're not trying to click through a bunch of buttons, close an eye, look through the, you know.
And I think that brings up another question. You know, I think the more that phones and reception and the more that you have, and as those improve, the apps and having things downloaded, I think all of that's going to continue to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they're working on it.
Yep.
They're already talking about phones and, satellite.
Yeah.
And how it's going to be, these cell towers are going to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Don't want to jump too far in this, but what do you think about scopes having rangefinders? Like rifle scope, is that is that getting too far into the ethical side, or?
I don't think. Well, okay. Again, it's ranging.
Yep.
Which I'm okay with. I love the fact that like when you're in it, you don't have to come off the gun and look and set. Like when you're in the saddle, you're in the saddle and you're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like that.
Might make it more ethical too, because less movement you have to do, and you're sure of your yardage.
Yeah,
if the animal moves. Did that animal move 10 yards or 50 yards? Because that terrain, the way it's lying, 5 steps for an elk, that's a big difference.
And if that laser's zeroed on your crosshair, like if you were to be able to sight it in like you would your bullet, that laser's hitting the right spot.
That's I don't know, Brady. That's an interesting.
I've been thinking about that a little bit lately. Like, is that crossing the line, or is that going to be okay?
I will tell you. Selling certain scopes, I have flat out been told, man, that's just like cheating. Okay.
For you,
I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
But again, I'm at the end of. There's an animal on the other end. As long as the information that's telling that person is good, and he's making an ethical shot on that,
and he's practiced it.
Because I don't think that has anything to do with yardage. Because I think that gets tied in a lot. Like people are like, well, I don't think you should shoot. Look,
it might help someone at 100 yards, 200 yards.
I say this to customers every day. I personally like shots that are 600 or 700 yards max.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just my opinion.
Yep.
My personal way that I like to do things. It's that level of where I feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I was on a range every single day, and I was shooting, and I knew that 99 out of 100 I could do this at that yardage or that at that whatever, I might feel different. Mm-hmm. But the way that I like to do things, to keep things simple and short and sweet and to the point, it's just the way that I like to do it. And I think some guys draw that other line as they're like, oh, well, that's just making it too easy for them to shoot or whatever the yardage is.
Instantly try to go to the extreme.
I'm not saying I it's not about disagreeing. I don't maybe share that same thought, but I mean, I understand what they're saying.
So on the same subject, have either of you guys played with that Garmin bow sight? Was it the
I have
Zero
not.
No.
that does the range on
I have
it?
not.
Because that's like similar to what we're talking about with the rifle scope. And
Well, I know it's only in certain states you can't have electronics on your bow.
Right.
So, and that would be an electronic.
Yeah, I mean, to bring that up, I mean, you've got states right now, the muzzleloader thing.
yeah, that's
I mean,
like New
I
Mexico
think they're
just-
getting ready to hammer on some muzzleloader stuff.
yeah.
And quite frankly, first of all, I'm amazed, excuse me, that they've been able to do with the muzzleloaders what they've done. I mean, you talk about some of the guys in Arizona and
Shooting 300 yards
yeah,
with a
Luke-
like
muzzleloader.
Luke at Arrowhead.
Luke at Arrowhead.
Yeah.
I mean,
He's a
killing it,
wizard.
man. I mean, the guy's awesome.
Yep.
And he's got good rifles, and he does all that good.
Yeah, I bought a bunch of bullets from him and
But
stuff.
like, there's people that are just like that, and I understand muzzleloader was not intended for you to shoot. I mean, I think the spirit of what they were doing when they created muzzleloader hunts was not. It was. I mean, I think they were thinking more like. Oh, I'm not saying you have to go back to flintlock, and I mean, I don't mean it that way, but I think whatever gives you proper ignition and whatever allows you to kill an animal within decent distance, whatever, on a muzzleloader, I think that's what it was intended for, is to give those guys more opportunity.
Yep.
But now I mean, there's a guy that used to come into a shop, and he's from Ohio, and they've got a muzzle loading rifle. I think it shoots I think it was a 416, and the bullets are, I mean, they're grooved. I mean, you cannot believe what they've done. And they shoot 1,000 yards with those deals.
Single shot rifle, basically.
I mean, they killed those out of their, on their farms at like 1,000 yards. It's a muzzleloader.
Yeah. That's where, like, I brought up the Garmin, because I think about the Garmin one a lot. Like, I get it, why people use it, but to me, it's one of those things where, once I get to full draw, now I'm eliminating the need to let down when the animal moves, re-range it, readjust my sight, come to full draw, and I could just literally stay at full draw and move around while that animal might be moving and constantly click in the range, eventually I might get a shot, which is still bow hunting, but it just comes in. I know some people might like it, some people might not like it, but it's still a thought process I have. It's like, I get it. I don't know if it's for me, but if you totally think it's right, then go for it and use it. And it's like, it's a cool piece of technology that, if it's legal in certain states,
Why not use it?
Why not use it? And it
And
could be
the
beneficial.
ethics behind it too. It's like, I mean, in archery, the difference between an 80-yard shot and a 60-yard shot,
That's
your
big.
arrow's dropping.
It's big.
Yep. And if that could really help someone who's new at archery take an animal and they learn something, that's gonna be great for them, because they're gonna be excited about the sport and want to stick into it. Where if they don't do that and they miss or even worse, lose an animal, like, that's gonna tear them apart to the point where they might not shoot archery anymore. But that tool could help them do that, and they're not going to even take unethical things like, I can drop some bombs because I can instantly get range. No, they're keeping it still in their distance so they can comfortably shoot it, but it's going to make them make that perfect shot every single time. Kind of a good use for a tool then.
Yeah, I mean,
It's one of those things you can stay up
there's
all night
just so
thinking.
much. I mean, there's the fair chase thing, and all of that stuff coming, and people talking about it. I think there's just so far extremes on both sides of the the deal. Like, and I've had guys be like, oh, well, if you didn't have a BTI, I'm like, yeah, but it takes my eyes to be behind it to see it.
Yeah, exactly. You're still in the field.
I'm still in the field. I'm still doing what I'm doing. I mean, I'm not trying to bag on anybody else's way of doing things, but just because I can see far, I mean, I still have to put my time behind it.
Yep.
I still have to be behind it and do it. And I don't know. I think there's common sense stuff, and I think we need to. I don't know that it needs to be police, but I just think people need to think about what they're doing and what's the spirit of the law. It's like I had a college class that was what is sport. We talked about every sport, we talked about hunting, and you can be sporting. but that doesn't make something a sport. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, there's different ways to think about all that. I don't know. I'm getting way off on the deal, but but because
Philosophy
but
podcast.
it's
down a
such
rabbit
a
hole.
it's such a. I mean, there's so much stuff out there.
Yeah. And we touched on a little bit in the last podcast on my like Mueller sabbatical one about like people who bag on people for doing certain things and might say, look, I don't have enough time to go out and practice that much. But it's like, if you really want to be good at what we're doing right now, like if you want to be the best hunter, you can make time. Like I literally don't have the time to go to the range all the time and shoot my rifle.
Right.
But what do? I wake up super early. I'm tired that whole entire day. I dedicate time during the week to go shoot my rifle. And it's not sometimes not easy to go shoot your rifle here in Las Vegas. Get to drive really far out in the desert. The wind's always going, or the range is really busy, so I go to the desert. But I make time to go and practice with these tools, so that way I can be the best hunter. Because again, using these tools and doing this is one small part of me being successful. It's another tool in my toolkit. And if you want to be proficient with your rangefinder, whether it's archery, rifle, you need to go out and practice. And if you want to be the best golfer in the world, basketball player, football player, like you're going to go out and practice extra. You're going to put the time at the gym. You're going to put the time in looking at plays and just diving into your craft. And I think most people think, well, I don't have time to do this. I think you do have time. You just got to know how to manage your time. And is that level of effort, if you go into the range of shooting, is that going to be worthwhile for you? And I think it always is. You can always make time to go shoot your bow, shoot your rifle, practice these things, practice glassing even, going out in the morning and just going glassing does. Like I was already talking to Cody Boer, when I get back from my next hunt, I want to go up here in the mountain. I just want to go look at deer. Because when I'm doing looking deer, I'm practicing.
Well, that's my whole thing is I enjoy going out and just glassing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes more I even do just hunting.
Yeah.
You learn stuff, you see stuff, and I think that's always good. But on what you're saying, I don't know. I just the infighting, the calling everybody out thing, and I understand people have, and there are certain things that you go, I get it.
Yep, I do.
I understand.
Mm-hmm. I understand where you're coming from.
But just to like hate somebody for something like that, I just don't understand that thinking.
Mm-hmm. One cool plug for Rangefinders too. If you guys don't have GOHUNT maps, I explained a little bit in the last podcast. I'll explain it again how badass that Rangefinder tool feature is.
Oh, 100%.
Literally, you can sit there and when you take an animal, range exactly where that animal is, jump on the Rangefinder tool, drop a pin exactly where the animal's at. Did this on my bull elk.
Yep.
Literally, I haven't told you this, Cody. That's why I'm kind of telling it right now. I marked that bull elk where I shot it from. It was 645 yards. We hiked out, so I dropped the waypoint. By the time we finished everything, did some filming, grabbed up our gear, it's pitch black out. We knew we had to drop down this nasty canyon, go up in this little canyon, get up in these trees, and eventually get over there to this little aspen patch where that bull was. Dark. Now I know how to get there. Yeah, we have a rough idea because I took a picture as well. Like I always take pictures too. But like that rangefinder tool, Cody, I was 32 yards away from that bull. It's exactly where that rangefinder tool got me to 32 yards. I can see with my headlamp. Like it was that close. Like you can't ask for that level of. There's still some like error built into all these rangefinder tools of fine little error. Like 32 yards away, I knew exactly where it's at. That's an absolute game changer for all sorts of different things. Even ranging an animal, you're going to put a stock on it, and then getting over there, and then using a line measurement tool to measure from that ridge down to there. Can I shoot from there too? There's so many different use cases.
It sure beats the old days when you would literally have a guy stay in the optics.
Yep.
And know, okay, this is where the animal was when he shot. And you would wait for guys to get over to the flashlight until he was in the center of your screen, and that was your waypoint there.
Mm-hmm. I've used it twice this year, and the first was on my Nevada deer hunt, archery, and I was stalking a buck, and sure enough, that buck was, I got to 100 yards, and I was like, all right, I want to get to 60 because that was my goal, and it was right there, and I was like. I thought it was I had another 60 yards to go before I was at 100 yards.
Yep.
Nope, it was right there. It was perfect. And then on my mom's hunt, it was last light when she shot, and my dad was like, "Hey, okay, I'll stay in the glass. You and your mom hike up there, and we'll do the whole what you were just describing, the whole wave him down with the flashlight." And I was like, "No, we're good. Like,
you
got the tool." Yeah, it was. I think we were 20 yards away.
Well, you guys will laugh at this because you know my kids are my two boys are fully into baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I always love to hear somebody go, "Oh, that field's hit a home run at 350." Oh, really? Get the map out. Boom. Well, that sign, that sign's not right.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
this is. It's always funny to see.
I thought you were going to say you had a rangefinder.
Well,
I'm sure
You probably
might
Cody
have.
already has one.
Yeah, I
with
was
him.
gonna say, it's probably in the
Wallet.
truck, right?
no, but my Zeiss Mini Quick with
Yeah,
the five,
the little
the 5-power
Ocular.
pen light,
Yeah.
that comes out once in a while. But yeah, so you can use those things for any. I mean, that's just incredible.
And that's why the combo of having a rangefinder and having GOHUNT maps is going to benefit you. And like I said, you can use it stalking. I can literally know where that animal's at, drop a pin using a rangefinder tool after I range with my rangefinder, and then I can do some measurements on the app from ridge lines around there to then figure out which is going to be the best shooting position when I get over there, because I want to make the most ethical kill and I want to be close enough to it.
Wow.
And it
And then I
never
can-
looks the same.
Never
when you
looks
get
the
over
same.
there.
So you might want to mark those spots, and then when you get over there, the wind might be different. Like, shoot, the spot I wanted to shoot from, well, it's going to be blowing right to that deer.
Or
It should actually be.
I've got this tree. I didn't have the angle on. That's
Yeah.
in front of me. Can't do it. Yeah.
Yep.
Makes things really nice.
Yeah, I just think that there's so many of those things. Like, I think about that, and I'm like, it's so cool that, I mean, I used to do that on Google Earth, 10 years ago.
Yep.
Okay, like, I'm going to go sit on that hill, and, that hill's going to be X number. Okay, so I can make that happen.
And some guys could even say, too, like, well, is that really crossing a line ever? But I think no, it's definitely not, because if I can mark that spot exactly where the animal is and I can recover that animal that night instead of the next day, let's say it's an archery hunt or something, or early
hot.
season is hot,
Yeah.
I am now going to be able to cut up that meat where I don't have to, we have to back out, we don't know where it's at, it's dark out, it could be down that ridge, could be down that area.
Yep.
Well, now we recover the animal in the night, cut it all up, got that meat out of the mountains, and didn't let that thing spoil. So
Yeah.
it's going to recover animals a lot easier, too.
I think that's, before the mapping part of it, like, there were some guys that when you talked about the Swarovski and the tracking assistant,
Yep.
people had mentioned, well, that's kind of crossing the line. I'm like, well, wait a minute. We're talking about recovering a game animal.
Yep.
It memorizes your last 3, ranges, and you go back to that one where it was shot, and it helps you get to that point. Hey, I'm sorry, I don't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever helps you recover the game.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I've also been told, like, there's places that don't allow dogs to recover game.
Yeah.
That's nonsense,
Yep.
because I've watched it happen and it works.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
common sense. If if it's ethical and it helps you recover or less suffer, whatever the thing is, if it works like that, I think it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. You guys have any closing thoughts on rangefinders here before we wrap it up? On anything you guys are working on, can leak, that we're kind of testing, or things you're excited about?
No, I mean, I this year's coming up, and we're working on bringing in as many cool products as we can, and
Making more options.
yeah,
Making
again,
it more
choice
confusing for you on the phones when people are like,
yeah.
"What's the difference between this one and this one and this one?" Options.
Again, we're choice.
Yep.
Trying to figure out what choices and create a bigger bandwidth to help people out. Excuse me. I don't know what happened just there.
So excited talking about optics.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing about next year is, I mean, we have the Vortexes are new this year.
Right.
There's a couple new ones coming from a few different vendors that we've got, I think Q1 or Q2 of next year that we'll have our hands on. And
And like I said, I've
And
already
I want to
seen-
make sure they're not new to the industry. They're just new to us.
right.
And we're playing with them and having fun with them.
Yep. Like I said earlier, like I've been seeing Ethan testing out some stuff when we've been out shooting rifles and stuff
Yep.
like that, and really impressed with what I've been seeing.
Yeah.
Great time to be a consumer looking for rangefinder or optics.
Yeah,
or,
we will continue down that path to bring new options and create a bigger bandwidth to help people out.
And as always, too, everyone who's listening to this, remember we have an awesome promo for you guys, too. So if you need Insider membership, app season's coming up. It's time to put the best tools in your pocket so you can figure out your plan for next year. So if you want to sign up for Insider right now, Use promo code podcast. Get you 50 points back to the Go Hunt Gear Shop. You can turn around and use that on buying some optics, tripods, gear, boots, whatever it is. And 1 point equals $1. So that's basically 50 points back in your pocket at Go Hunt. And then if you want to sign up for Explorer membership, that's their maps only membership. Promo code podcast, that gives you 25 points back to the Go Hunt Gear Shop. So,
and I would just add to that. You can leave an email at optics@gohunt.com, or you can call it holy cow, 847-877. What are we at now? Are we 702?
702.
847-8747.
There you go.
Yeah. I just had to get in rhythm.
Yep.
Had to have a little better rhythm today.
Yep. So be sure to take advantage of, like I always say, Cody. Cody is a gem. He will talk to you on the phone, explain all your options to you in a very easy to understand way, and he'll help you out to make your best optic choice. So definitely utilize.
Yeah, I would just tell people to think about what your uses are. Think about the things that are most important. Are you trying to shoot long? Or, really, some guys try to buy way more rangefinder than they're ever going to need. So think about those things. And, if you got questions, call us, because that's what we're here for. It's what I get paid to do.
Mm-hmm.
Really.
We appreciate your knowledge.
Well, I hope to think I've helped a lot of people take game or made good decisions anyway.
Exactly.
Smart purchases.
Yeah.
Yep.
We got so we got some we're stocked up pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On some products that have been tough to get.
Rangefinder's been crushing this year.
Yeah, Rangefinders have done very well.
It's a good topic to talk about.
Yep.
And always remember, too, this is going to be released before Black Friday. I'm not sure what kind of optic sales we got going on, but there most likely will be some Black Friday sales that anyone listening to this will definitely want to check out. Yeah, call Cody. Ask him.
Yeah.
A lot of cool things in the works coming up. So I appreciate you guys jumping on. I'm sure listening to too. So
thanks for having me.
This was a fun one.
Can we say good luck to you?
Oh, yeah,
with the next upcoming...
Yeah.
Can I say it?
You can say it. Yeah, we're going to do some... I think I'm going to do some stuff.
I just like saying it. Tajikistan. Huh?
Yep.
Well, I won't see you before then.
No.
So safe travels.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild adventure.
Watch your six, right?
Yeah, never left North American content before.
And I think the coolest thing is you're doing it with your dad.
Yep.
And I'm insanely... I don't want to say jealous, insanely envious. I think this is awesome.
Yeah, it's a bucket list hunt I've looked forward to my entire life, and like I said, we're gonna do a bunch of diving into this whole Tajikistan hunt because it is something wild and crazy, and yeah, I'm gonna be poor the rest of my life, but it's something I've always wanted to do. It's a bucket list thing. I'll pay for it till the day I die, but it's gonna be a wild adventure, and hopefully after I get back, I was thinking about doing a podcast beforehand. Kind of talking through my gear and running through my expectations because I've never been on a sheep hunt before. I'm going after Marco Polo, the world's largest horned sheep species. But I think it's going to be better if I do it after the fact when I get back because I want to be able to tell people what worked and what didn't work. Right now, if I explain people, I'm just kind of guessing. Yeah. You know, and I know there's going to be things that I forgot or things I wish I had backups of, and that's why I want to wait to do a lot of the discussion around it until I get back because then I'll be fresh in my mind and I'll know what worked and what didn't work and I'll be so excited to talk about it. So there's gonna be a lot of cool
copious amounts of notes.
Yep. Yeah. So I can't wait. I'm taking so much gear, 2 different camera bodies, tons of different lenses. I'm gonna try to video it when I'm over there. Try to see if we can put together something with me and my dad. So it's gonna be an adventure of 10,000 lifetimes.
And we'll have to talk about the optics that you end up taking.
Yeah.
There's some fun stuff to think about with that.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be wild. Just the weather, the conditions. Like I said, I've never even left North America before. I've never been in an international flight, never flown across the ocean, never even went to the bathroom on an airplane. So it's going to be a fun experience for me. So I'm like way too tall of a guy. Now I'm like at a point in my life where I'm like, I should have known how to do this a long time ago.
Don't play with the blue water.
Okay. Okay.
Don't play with the blue water. It's not for you.
Yep. So I leave in less than a week. So
all of a sudden, I don't know when he said that. It made me think of Tommy Boy in the airplane. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't get your tie stuck in there.
Yeah. Yep. So guys are listening.
Well, be safe.
Yeah, we've been leaking it a little bit that I'm doing it. I haven't told a lot of people just because it's one of those hunts where I'm not sure what people think, but it's like, well, it's what I do is hunt. I save up all my money all year just for hunting. I obviously saved up money for a house when I was younger, did that, and all the rest of my money goes towards hunting. So it's like something I'm working forward to. And I just love hunting so much.
That's what you do. It's your livelihood.
Well, I'm sure that's a bucket list for a ton of people too.
Yeah, I just crave adventure. I know if I don't do it now, when am I ever going to be able to do it? It's like everything else is changing. Prices are increasing all the time, and it's something I can share with my father and do one big bucket
to
list
me,
thing.
when I heard about it,
That's the best part.
I don't remember who told me, but I'm like, he's doing what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is the coolest thing. And my thoughts on it were, I just lost my dad. And so the fact that you're doing that, I don't care, man. You take every single second of it and enjoy it, because you just don't know.
Yeah. That's why this last week.
Just don't know.
This last week, too, I was sitting there. I've been cutting up a bunch of my elk meat, making sticks, jerky, burger out of it. And I'm like, get to that process. It's like every night I'm going to bed at like 3 a.m. Like I go to bed late at night anyway, but like staying up that late and doing this, I'm like, what am I doing to myself right now? I have Tajikistan I'm supposed to be preparing for.
You got to rest up.
I have all my gear.
You're like an athlete. You got to be on taper right now.
Yeah, I have all my gear laid out. I've already been planning all year. I already have a spreadsheet made, but it's like my living room's full of gear right now, getting ready for it. It's like I really just need to make sure that gear's dialed and make sure all my work items are in order before I take off on this hunt. I threw all that meat back, a bunch of that meat back in my freezer. I'm going to take care of it when I get back. It's like I need to focus right now. Literally the biggest hunt I'm ever going to go on. And I just need to... Yeah, what advice you got, real quick?
I don't know. I mean, I've been around. I've never been, so full disclosure. But I've been around a lot of guys and served a lot of customers that have been around the world. And I would just flat out tell you that the biggest thing I would say is, don't forget to have fun.
Yeah.
All this it's all going to happen when it's meant to happen. Work hard. Literally look hard and enjoy it and take in the atmosphere, take in the culture, and enjoy it for what it is. And maybe I see that the wrong way, but I just know that the guys that allow themselves to really just sink in and enjoy it, the stories they tell. They might have something bad happen, but they roll with the punch and they go with it. And maybe one day I'll tell you, a story. And I don't think we have time to tell it, and I'd probably get emotional telling anyway. But I've heard stories of guys that, they just got so like I've got to kill.
Got to get that
one. And it just ruined their hunt.
I think I have a good thing going for me that I'm a pretty calm-natured guy to begin with and just soak up the moments, things. If a vehicle breaks and we're trying to get to a spot, I know it's going to be okay because we're going to fix it and we're still going to be able to hunt. Things happen all the time.
I just go with the flow.
Yeah.
I'm literally legitimately envious.
I hope I do it justice. That's why I'm taking as much photos as I can, as much videos as I can. I'm going to fill up my phone. But also I'm trying to remember at the same time to also just sit back and soak it up and not try to just document everything, because this is something, like I said, the hunts I do with my dad are very special to me. That's why I love my family hunts I do every year. And this is just an extension of that to a whole nother degree.
Right.
And it's something I'm going to cherish
forever. Base camp? I mean, what elevation?
I think I heard base camp's at 13.5.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
I've never even been up to that elevation in my life. So base camp's there, hunting up to maybe 16,000 feet, and highs are going to be 10 degrees. They said low will be in the negative 20s and brutally cold. But this is the sheep rut. This is the prime time to go. And this is what we've been planning this hunt for over 3 years. I think.
Good for you.
I'm thinking about it our whole entire life. We've always wanted to do something crazy like this, and I've always thought, these mid-Asian hunts are the pinnacle of mountain hunting. Oh. And finally get to go and do that. It's just mind-blowing. It still hasn't quite sunk in yet that I'm finally going to be a sheep hunter. To think of that in my head, it's crazy. I've never seen a sheep die before on the ground. And here I go to take the world's largest longhorned sheep species. Blows my mind.
I don't know. I've seen, when you're at the sheep show and you've had, I've seen them and the base. I mean, it's just, they're gigantic.
Absolutely gigantic.
And then you're doing ibex?
Ibex as well, yeah.
I always think those are cool.
I think ibex are super
cool looking.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And the way they go around the mountain, and you see photos just
Oh,
Google
yeah.
ibex, and you're just like, it's always one that's like that one that's on that sheer cliff face,
Right.
and just hanging out there, like,
Just totally
what
chill.
are you doing?
Well,
Yep.
seriously, enjoy.
Yeah, I've watched every single YouTube video. I have 3 books pretty much about sheep hunting over there, and just diving into history and the whole Marco Polo kind of thing with finding the sheep. And I've been immersing myself in just learning everything I can before I go, just like I do with mule deer and stuff. I always want to do my due diligence of the animal I'm going to do. I've even read biology reports about studies on Marcos. And
So it's not. I mean, before we even talked, I would have told you that was more of a. It's not necessarily about finding the sheep, but it's about finding the one that you like. Oh, that's
Yep.
it.
if I showed you my phone right now, I have a photo album that's shared with my dad that we just go through and look, like, what's that one score? What do you think about that one? Like, I have so many screenshots of Marcos.
That's
and
awesome.
Just trying to, make it fun. But
Well, I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
venture of a lifetime, and optics are going to play a big part in it. So we'll have to chat
Well,
afterwards.
take copious amounts of photos.
Oh, you know it. Yep.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. Super, super crazy. Yeah, it's coming up real
Well,
quick.
daylight savings, boys, is coming into effect in here already.
Yeah, it's dark outside.
Well, I don't even know what time. Like, we're an hour different. What time is it?
4:50 right now in the evening.
Man, it just crushes
black
it.
out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
But it's up an hour earlier, so if you're a morning person,
Yeah.
He's not a podcast rookie anymore.
Nope. Welcome. We'll have to have you on again. I want to hear
Fun.
about your hunt next week.
yeah,
So when I get back, we'll have a lot
I
of
think
stories.
we get back around the same time.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we
we'll
can do
have to
some
get you
good.
on. Definitely walk through that. 'Cause
hopefully we're standing behind a big bull
is that archery or rifle hunt?
rifle,
Yeah.
late rifle.
Oh,
Yeah,
geez, son.
yeah.
Yeah, he tells me, he's like, "You gonna be around?" I'm like, "I'm in Texas for Thanksgiving."
No, yeah. Starts after Thanksgiving, but yeah.
No,
same
but I
weekend.
know, but I'm
yeah,
not-
it's like the opener is the opener
Yeah,
for a reason. You know?
exactly. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're still hunting on Monday, I'll
Yeah,
see what we can do.
yeah.
Well, as again, thanks guys for coming.
Thank
Good
you.
luck
Yeah,
to you,
thank
Ethan.
you. Good
Shoot
luck
giant
in-
bull.
Love the
Tajikistan.
opportunity, big dog.
Yep. Appreciate you guys.